Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. Special episode this week. It's second to last pod of 2024. So we have our annual extravaganza with Peter Schrager from Good Morning Football, Andrew Perloff from the Perloff and Maggie Show. This is the fifth annual, meaning this is the fifth year in a row that Schrager and Perloff have joined me to recap 2024 and talk about all of the things we loved and hated about sports media and pop culture over the past year. So it is a long one. Hope you enjoy it over the holiday break you're getting. Before we get to it, let me just quickly tell you, recent guests on the SI Media podcast with Jimmy Traina, in case you've missed any of them. Mike Tirico last week from NBC, Sean McDonough of ESPN 2 weeks ago, Brian Curtis from The Ringer, Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football. All recent guests right here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. So if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. And if you missed any of those episodes, give them a listen. All right, like I said, long year-end wrap-up extravaganza episode right now, so I don't want to take any more of your time. Train of Thoughts with Sal Katt will be back next week. So we'll get Sal in one more time here before the year is over. All right, let's get to it now. It is the fifth annual year-end extravaganza right here on SI Media with Jimmy Traina with Peter Schrager and Andrew Perloff, all right here, right now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, it is the fifth annual SI Media podcast, year-end spectacular. The people wanted it, so here it is. From Good Morning Football and Fox, Peter Schrager. From the Maggie and Perloff Show, Andrew Perloff. Fifth annual, fellas. Fifth annual.
Wow. I look forward to this every year.
I was worried it wasn't going to happen. Then we got the text chain going, and here we are. And I'll tell you, as many times as you want to interview Mike Tirico and a wrestler, it was nice to squeeze us in here, Jimmy.
It really was a squeeze job, because what really was the problem was the holiday falling on a Tuesday, Wednesday messed things up, because I thought there was no chance Peter could do it on a Monday with his schedule. That ridiculous fly out to LA, Good Morning Football, Fox, fly back to New York. I'm like, he can't do this.
Yeah,
but
my concern.
He came through, so it's all on Peter that this got done.
It's my concern. Yeah, watching Peter bro hug Tom Brady on TV for the last 6 months, and Gronk and Joy. Like, do you remember the little guys, Peter? That was really my big.
Was it the real Tom Brady or the hologram?
It was the real one. So Brady, quick story, because this is what we do. Welcome, everybody. Best podcast of the year. Sorry for Jimmy's 18-minute or 18-hour marathon with Robert Griffin last year. Still going on, by the way. I would say, here we go. The Brady studio appearance was crazy. Like, I didn't see him, didn't know he was in town. And then he comes walking into our Fox NFL set, which is, we're on the kickoff show, which is the hour before the one that you see at 12 o'clock. We're on at 11 a.m. And Brady comes on and he's like headed right over to Gronk, says what's up, headed right over to Edelman, says what's up. And then I'm like, we've met before. We spent 2 days together this offseason at a Fox retreat. He knows who I am, but I can't be so sure that Brady's going to have like this facial recognition of, oh, there's Schrager. So I kind of inch over. Then he comes over to say hi to me. And then on national TV with a lot of friends watching, I went in for the bro hug, and he didn't like hug me back. He was going in for like a formal handshake. It was one of the more awkward white guy moments of my life, but I felt it online because Fox immediately blasted that out.
That's so funny. I've told this story before, because back in, I don't know, I guess in March, it was around March, I guess, I was interviewing Cody Rhodes from the WWE in person, because it was right before WrestleMania, and it was in person. He went for the bro hug, and I didn't, and then I'm like, oh, now, like, he's like the WWE champ. Should I, like, you don't expect him going, like, those guys you don't expect to go for the bro hug, but Brady, I could see, like, he probably thought it's all about Gronk and Edelman for him, and then that's why you got blown off.
No, he didn't blow me off. I went in too aggressively. He went with
he went for it and you didn't, right?
No. He went with the nice to see you, man, and I thought that was an opening for a hug, but it wasn't.
I got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was watching live, and Peter, he's so good. He audibled into a half bro hug.
He did. He helped me out.
The whole thing. I had no idea. No idea there was off.
I have been with countless people on TV in my life, and there are so many people who don't sell you, meaning you have a joke and they don't laugh, or you have a line and they don't even acknowledge it. Brady in his first year was able to pick up and sell my bro hug, so that at least covered it up a little bit. But I'm still feeling the shame from the douche chills from that whole experience.
It's bad. Yeah, on both ends. Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about Brady at some point during the pod because we're going to get into sort of the best, the worst, what we liked, highlights of the year in sports and sports media, and just go through it. So let me start with this. Let me start with sports media because I have a clear choice for what I think was the biggest sports media story of the year. So I'll throw it out there, let you guys react, and then we'll go from there. Now, normally it would most likely be an NFL story, but the NBA, the reason why I say this is number one is because of like the 5 layers to it. So the NBA has dumped TNT. They go on Amazon and NBC. So that's layer number one.
Would you say it's a conscious uncoupling? I know there was a lawsuit after the fact, but
no, we want the most money possible.
No, but like didn't TNT a year ago, didn't their CEO Zaslav come out at a conference and say that like they don't need the NBA? And
he's there. That's what he said.
So he did say that. I don't think it was just the NBA saying we don't want TNT. I think they first said that publicly, and I'm sure that didn't go over very well. Well,
the biggest ramification of the NBA getting rid of TNT and going with the other two is that would mean the end of Inside the NBA. And then Charles Barkley did like a bunch of interviews, including on this podcast, and changed his story like 10 times because he was going to retire, stay with TNT, listen to the other networks, this, that. And then we get this bombshell that ESPN is going to license the show and the show is going to continue. And even now, it's still unsettled. Shaq doesn't have a contract. Barkley said last week on Dan Patrick, Perloff's old stomping grounds, that he's going to talk to Amazon and NBC. So for me, that was by far the biggest sports media story of the year. I know, Perloff, you're a huge NBA guy. What was your take on that whole situation?
I am so worried. I love Inside the NBA. It's going to ESPN. And Peter, you might be able to comment on this. The clock on the ESPN halftime show and pregame show is brutal. The guys get 3 seconds to talk. And the best thing about Inside the NBA is that they can sort of take their time after the game. I love it. By the way, Charles on DP was amazing. Still has his fastball. So this is going to come off as anti-ESPN, but I'm afraid ESPN is going to ruin the show.
Well, but just so everyone knows, because I think this is a misconception, they have no editorial control. They're not producing the show.
But the show is they have a clock, don't they, Jimmy?
Right. And that's why I think it's the whole thing is weird. But I don't want people listening to this thinking that like ESPN's going to put their people on it. Like they can't. The show's owned by Warner Brothers Discovery still. Schrager, go ahead.
I to clarify and kind of layer what Andrew's saying. So I've been on network halftime shows before for Saturday coverage. There are so many ad responsibilities and so many commercial integrations, whether it be a Marvel movie or this Disney thing where you got to push, that I always thought ESPN had this albatross around them being compared to Inside the NBA when forget halftime. I think it's all equal halftime, but post game, ESPN has usually like 30 seconds to recap the game. Then they toss to Sports Center. Meanwhile, Inside the NBA, the best stuff from Inside the NBA doesn't come at halftime. It comes after the game when they're fucking around and they're
1 o'clock in the morning.
And we don't have to rush off to get to, Rizzoli and Isles or the closer. Like they can just sit and BS. I never thought ESPN was given a fair fight with that. Now, granted, do I need to hear Malika Andrews and Richard Jefferson and Bob Myers, BS? No, I don't know those people. I don't have a relationship with them. But I know Charles, I know Kenny, I know Shaq, and not personally, but I know them from 2 decades of watching them with Ernie just bust balls, bust chops, and have a good time after those games. A lot of those games being blowouts or meaningful games and happening in the 1 o'clock hour. I think the best version of that ESPN show was when it was Bill Simmons and I think it was Jalen Rose and Doug Collins, and you get a little bit of a saucy Simmons, but even then Sage Steele would have to toss to something and you didn't get the full podcast style conversation. So I always thought that was an unfair fight. As someone who hosts a 3-hour morning show on Good Morning Football, we have the ability for me and Kyle to riff off each other, go long. You can't compare us to that CBS JJ Watt and Matt Ryan show. It's not the same thing. It's one's an area for space and for nuance and dialogue. The other one is hit Garmin, our radar company, and whatever. We have to get to commercial.
Wait, what about the fall in ratings on NBA? Is it connected to all this? Like, is that part of the story? To me, and I'll just say, I'm going to throw my opinion out. It's the season's too long, load management. I'm not going to get into anything else. Like, why do you have to be invested in a game in December?
I think that when ratings go down, no offense to you, you're an idiot if you think it's one reason. It's never one reason. What you hit on is huge. I'm in the same boat. Like, the players have made it clear they're not interested in the regular season. So I don't understand the point in, if you're a fan, being so invested in the regular season. There's also 500 3-pointers a game. The game isn't the same. I mean, we grew up in the time where, someone comes down the lane and Charles Oakley would give him a clothesline. Those days are long over. It's a different style. Now, again, it's not one reason. It's a lot of reasons. I think, and you can't discount the cord cutting because the NHL ratings are down tremendously as well this year, more than the NBA. We are old. No one under 35, maybe even 40 at this point has cable. It's insane. Nobody has cable anymore. It's except us old people. So it's not one reason. It's many reasons why.
I think using the Nielsen ratings as a measuring stick is a very archaic thing to do. But I would also say when its perception is reality, and once that becomes a spiraling story, it becomes reality. And the end of the day, Adam Silver can address it, which he did, which is not something that, I can't imagine my commissioner. I can't imagine Roger Goodell reading internet rumors and going, well, let me tell you why this is the ratings are down. That's just not the world that the NFL lives in. The NFL is we're going to put the best product on possible. We're going to keep on rolling and we're going to just roll right through. It seems like Silver is negotiating online, talking to people in press conferences about this stuff, which is mind blowing. But bottom line is, guys, they just signed massive deals. Right. They're laughing all the way to the bank. Who cares?
Right.
They don't care. They don't care about ratings. I don't. And they shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe.
And it kills me to say this because, of course, every NBA fan wants the NBA on TNT. But they were smart to ditch TNT for Amazon. In this day and age, you got to do that.
Well, I read that NBC is going to have 2 national weekday windows. I can't
Tuesday
watch
night.
I can't watch an NBA game. I try. I love the Knicks. I love the Nets. I like both teams. Living in Brooklyn, I've really become a fan of taking my son to these Nets games. They're pretty entertaining young team. But I'll tell you another thought that I had that I haven't seen anywhere else. I know everyone points to the style of play, the 3-pointers, and JJ Redick, who was a former Brooklyn resident of ours, and I'd say I'm friendly with him, came out and said that there's too much negativity about the game.
Yeah,
it's
terrible take.
Not the take I would give, but I will say this. In the last 5 years, I've, watched a lot of NBA with my son. Ja Morant was the most exciting player in the league. You saw how that went down. Zion Williamson was a blast that first season. You saw how that went down. I was so excited for Wemby. I watched the Spurs, and we'll watch them again on Christmas against the Knicks. The Spurs come in. Wemby's just a 7'4" guy who shoots 3-pointers. It's not a fun. So I don't know where that next generation is. And I'm kind of over LeBron myself, and the Steph Curry, shooting threes was great at the Olympics, but that felt like a swan song, not like hey, that's the stars of the game. That felt like it was a farewell to arms from all those guys. And yet they're the ones still being marketed as the stars of the league.
Yep. Andrew, have anything else to this?
Can I do my media story of the year? Because it's related to this.
Okay.
My media story of the year is also maybe the sports story. Anything Caitlin Clark is electric. And that's just the bottom. And I think the NBA, we're talking about all of these issues with NBA ratings. Obviously, the women's game is going the opposite direction. And anything you say, you guys might have experienced this online about women's basketball and about her will blow up. I don't know if you guys know, I had a tweet in the first round of the tournament.
Go on.
And it was about...
Remember the rule, never tweet.
Yes, it was about the number 16 seed. A woman elbowed Caitlin by accident. She tripped on another player. And I said, how can you call that a flagrant? She clearly tripped. It got such a negative reaction. CBS Morning News on Sunday put up my tweet and talked about it for 2 minutes about what an idiot
Look at you.
Jane Pauley?
Yes,
influencer.
Yes.
Influencer.
Brennan?
Wait. CBS Sunday Morning, you mean the Gail King, Nate Burleson show?
No, I think it was
like
this Sunday morning.
The sun rising one with
like the old
Jane Pauley?
I think it was the old Bill Moyer show. Anyway, it was it exploded like nothing I'd ever said in my life, and it was the most innocuous comment.
Well, what were they saying, that you were pro Caitlyn, or you were calling out the other
anti Caitlyn? Like Caitlyn got elbowed by somebody. You don't realize that she's being treated unfairly. I'm telling you, I've seen, and Jimmy, you know, from the online traffic, everything Caitlyn blows up. And I think the TV networks are going to follow.
Well, I see the whole Caitlin Clark thing is very confusing to me because I'm not a WNBA watcher and I don't really follow it at all. Here's what I know, though, as someone who covers media. The ratings were one number. Then when she plays, the numbers are a totally different number that's like 50 times higher. The attendance is one number. And then when she's in the building, the attendance is like 10 times higher. You don't have to follow a sport to understand what's happening here. But somehow if you say that, that's a bad thing to say. I don't understand the whole case. Like, she's responsible for the ratings and the attendance increase. Period. End of story. There's nothing to say. I don't understand the discourse. To me, it's a very simple, here's the facts.
The discourse, we're three white guys talking about this on a Zoom. The discourse very quickly became one involving, social issues and race and the history of women's basketball.
That's fine, but when she plays, there's 20,000 people in the building. When she doesn't play, there's 7.
You can't be naive and say that that's the story. The story's not about whether Caitlin Clark's a good player.
But she shouldn't be part of that story. But I'm just saying her effect is the rating is a 1 if she's not playing and a 5 if she's playing.
She is a seminal talent, and she is the biggest needle mover we have seen in any sport. Maybe, I don't know, since LeBron came back to since LeBron brought the NBA back from the dregs of the late 90s, early 2000s post Jordan. I'll tell you this though, and this again, I don't know what gets aggregated and not. Caitlin Clark, I watched probably 15 Iowa women's basketball games last year. I watched the tournament, and that tournament coming for Caitlin Clark, I stuck around and I watched South Carolina, and I stuck around and I watched LSU, and I stuck around. It has bled into this season where on a random Monday night 2 weeks ago, my son, who's a diehard hoops fan and is 8 years old, we watched Iowa versus Iowa State post Caitlin Clark, and there is a young woman, Audie Crooks on Iowa State, number 55, just graceful footwork, a beast in the post. And we're watching, and I'm like, I promise you, before Caitlin Clark, and this is just an anecdote, it's not tangible. I wasn't watching Iowa State women's basketball on FS1. I wasn't doing it before Caitlin brought us into the door to watch that. And that's all due respect to the UConn ladies program, and all due respect to Cheryl Miller and to Cheryl Swoops and whoever else. But it's the way that Caitlin Clark brought new eyeballs to women's college basketball, or women's basketball as a whole. You're right, Jimmy. It's not myth. It's not, you could pick it apart all you want. She brought new eyeballs into the game, and I haven't left.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the social issues of it. I'm just looking at the numbers because that's what I do. Right. So if what team is she on in the WNBA?
Indiana Fever.
Indiana, right. So if she's on the Fever, and the Fever get 3 million viewers, and then the same time slot, the same day, the game gets 600,000 viewers, that's what I'm looking at. So I don't know about all the other stuff. I didn't watch 15 Iowa games. I watched 0.
What about this though? Saturday after Ravens Steelers, did you leave Fox on because UConn played USC, and Juju Watkins was on, and she was awesome. And I'm telling you, that would not have been placed there had there not been a Caitlin Clark effect.
Yeah, but see, what I would like to know is how many people watched that game you're telling me about.
I would imagine it did very well.
Yeah, but not as well as Caitlin Clark.
No, but that's okay. It's like Jordan in the 90s.
But that's my point.
Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, and Patrick Ewing, it raised all boats in the 90s for the NBA. She's like Jordan. I totally agree with Peter. I watch so much more women. I personally like the college game a little more than the pro right now.
I agree.
The pro is a little one-on-one for me, but it'll catch up. And Angel Reese is a big part of it too. I mean, her games get big ratings. I'm telling you, everybody is coming up here. And I think also, Jimmy,
that's such bullshit.
Well,
that's just bullshit. No, she's responsible for a number that no one else is getting.
Well, look at the ratings, still better than it was 8 years ago.
Okay, but her games now are still 10 times better than every other game.
Jimmy, you're the one who texts me whenever women's college softball is on. You're like, UCLA is playing.
I love that.
I love
Like
watching that.
Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma's
Yeah.
the powerhouse.
It has nothing to do with that. I watched the whole game trying to figure out if I think I'd even be able to foul tip one of those underhand pitches.
Let me just chime in.
The way they pitch blows my mind away. I find it mesmerizing.
I'll give you another layer of like I didn't watch WNBA for many years. I would maybe know what's happening, but like I wouldn't sit down and watch. I got a text I'm on a group thread of friends. I got a text from a friend like last week being like, did you see that the Fever have a new coach? Like, and not doing it like in a chauvinistic machismo, like, oh, the Indiana Fever have like, no, like that was like a legitimate topic, like the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark's second year of a new head coach. Like we weren't doing this for the.
But why'd the old coach get fired?
I have no idea, but they have a new coach. I'm sure that there was a reason, but like, I'm just saying the fact that we're doing WNBA coaching news, that's how far.
Well, who's
we've
we?
come.
That's you. That's not me.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Listen, I'll be the monster. I'll say it. I didn't watch the women's college basketball. I didn't watch
how
men's
did you
college
not
basketball.
watch the women's?
But like culturally, it was in the zeitgeist. You didn't
Not
want to be a
interested.
part of it? Okay.
No, I didn't watch the men's college basketball. The sport is awful. It's an awful sport. And I didn't watch the WNBA. Sorry. I don't know. I'm allowed to not watch it.
It's fair. I don't watch wrestling.
Exactly my point. All right, let me tell you guys about Underdog. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on 2 or more player stats. Underdog is for everyone, so you can make a play with only $1 or go big and win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Do you think Patrick Mahomes will rack up higher than 300 yards next week? That Mahomes will get lower than 300 yards next week? Cook up some entries for Shot to Win, real cash prizes, all NFL season long. Underdog also offers you vulture protection. Yes, that's right. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and that running back gets vultured, Underdog will rescue your entry. Also, there's tons of promos Underdog is offering. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em, so sign up and deposit now using the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Underdog's offering profit boost, discounts, and free picks as well. What I love about Underdog is 2 things. Well, plenty of things, but the 2 best, easy to use, great interface, simple, and then I just love the action, higher or lower. You don't have to worry about digging deep into doing research for this, that. It's higher or lower on stats. Patrick Mahomes passing yards, Christian McCaffrey rushing yards, Justin Jefferson receiving yards, higher or lower. That's it. Fun and simple. And then, of course, great bonuses from Underdog. Download the app today and use the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the app today. Use the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama, Nebraska, and Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, you can call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Do you have a media story? Because I got 3 others I want you guys' opinion on, but if Schrager wants to throw one out, I'll let him.
I thought the Bill Belichick
that was on my list. Good call.
Was worth noting. I think that was a story. I would say I gave it a B- to a C+. I don't feel like there was much that I got that had me taking away saying this guy transformed the game, other than the few moments where he was a little snippy, and then the few inside the NFL segments where he would break down film, which is not my cup of tea. I'm not a film breakdown guy, but I would watch that because I was interested, and he would have this great memory. I think his best moments were with McAfee. I thought the McAfee draft simulcast with Belichick was the best thing in sports media.
Yeah, your mic changed.
Sorry.
What'd you do? You knocked it out? We're going to leave this in. We're going to leave this in. He's a TV professional. He's the professional TV here, not you and I.
Let me say it with authority.
And he knocks out his mic.
I thought the McAfee draft with Belichick was the best thing I saw, not only from Belichick, but from any media this year, because it was the same thing we've seen for years done differently. Everyone's so precious with the draft. They flipped it on its head. They had Belichick outside doing it with McAfee's cronies. It was this incredible clash of the young frat guys feeling with like the greatest coach of all time. And ironically, it was the first thing we'd seen Belichick do. He's great on the Manning cast in a different type of way, but like the year that we got of Belichick on TV, I thought was a major story, considering for 20 years he was so anti-media and not someone who would put it on for the cameras. Again, I wasn't blown away with him. I didn't think we're going to miss him if he goes away. I would gladly see him if he comes back. And if he does stuff next year, I'll still watch it. He's good with McAfee. He's good with the Mannings, but like as a whole, it's not like it moved the needle like I thought it might when it first was announced.
Perloff,
All that stuff.
I'm going to go to you. I just want to say one quick thing here. What I had written down is like the second or third biggest story of the year was Belichick going to North Carolina. So if you want to comment on that as well as what Schrager said and do it both, and we'll go back to Schrager to get his take on the North Carolina. Because to me, what I said at the time was what I love in sports is when something happens that we had no idea was coming. There were no rumors. There was no rumblings. So when the first whiff of Bills going to North Carolina was a true holy shit moment if you're a sports fan, which I love. So it's the combination of him becoming like this media person, having 78 jobs, and then he leaves for North Carolina. So you could do both, one or whatever you want to do. Go.
Well, I was going to say something happened that changed my whole opinion of the Belichick thing. I was worried he wouldn't criticize anyone. So who is he critical of? The New York Jets. And then we find out.
That's a layup.
Yeah, but then we find out from a Diana Rossini report that he reached out, or his people reached out to, I guess, Mike Tannenbaum, who's sort of running the Jet search. I'm like, well, I actually found that a little embarrassing for one of the great coaches of all time, that he had to reach out to the Jets. And the fact that no NFL team wanted him. I've heard many experts, I think including you, Peter, who did a really great podcast right after the North Carolina hire, that there was not an NFL team for him. I was scratching my head. I'm like, what is going on here? I see the coaching around the NFL. How can an NFL team not want Bill Belichick? And when he got hired by North Carolina, it just sent the message home.
Well, the Falcons have not gotten enough criticism for hiring Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. I'm sorry, but they just haven't. I mean, look at
you guys are looking at this in a silo, though, and as someone who lives and breathes this, you're looking at this as 60 minutes of an NFL game, X's and O's. There's no one better in time management. What was happening is that Belichick does not come to a new team as Bill Belichick, X's and O's, and then Bill Belichick comes and it's the Bill Belichick experience. A lot of what they preach is, you're getting the best time management, you're getting all that stuff. You're also getting the best building, and we're going to bring our people in and we're going to do it the way that we think it's done. Now, he went out of his way this year to stress that that's not what he's looking to do. It's just the coaching stuff. He's not looking to fire everybody and bring in his cast of weary travelers. It's him. And yet when the clock started ticking, these jobs were eliminated, and it was like, who's left for Belichick? Chicago, the Jets, the Saints. The Dallas job went away pretty quick. I think McCarthy's coming back. I think the Philly job went away pretty quick. That wasn't happening. And are you going to Jacksonville? Well, although I think he has a pretty good relationship with the Khan family, like, are you really going to Jacksonville to finish off your career? Suddenly it was, okay, there's money, there's the ability to coach. And I think it was a mutual FU from Belichick to the NFL and the NFL to Belichick, in that no one was rolling out a red carpet last year and no one's rolling out a red carpet this year. Well, then you know what? I'm good. I'll go to college. I'll start this program at UNC and bring it all the way back, and I'll bring all my boys with me. So Lombardi's got a job. Steven's likely coming with him. I don't know if Patricia's coming. I don't know if McDaniels is coming, but I am sure there will be a lot of familiar faces. They'll all get paid, and they'll all live a nice life in Chapel Hill. And Belichick in his head could say, I didn't get turned down by the NFL. I didn't even entertain it. I went back to college. That's what I chose to do. And I do think having a 24-year-old girlfriend who he seems very happy with, that maybe this is a different version of Belichick than we saw a couple of years ago, where it was grumpy Bill who couldn't deal with college kids anymore.
Wait, so now we're going to get Will Ferrell in old school doing cake stands, Bill Belichick? Is that what you're saying?
Don't laugh. He's going to have to do some stuff that is outside his comfort zone. He can't he cannot sell these kids on, you're coming to New England because I won 6 Super Bowls and you're going to learn time management. Like, there has to be a personal touch here.
But isn't it more about money now in the college game? And it's become more like the pro game. So was a report he wouldn't even have to go into living rooms. He said he wanted to, but the recruiting game has changed so much. And it's not even about like, he's 72, right? He can't recruit high school kids.
Yeah, but he probably
portal.
But he probably figures he can work his magic more on a recruit than an NFL. Like he doesn't want to deal with NFL like he doesn't want to have a GM. He doesn't want to have a team president. He doesn't want to have an owner.
I don't think I
don't believe that athletic story for 1 second. I don't believe it for 1 second. I'm not saying they're wrong. I just don't believe it.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. I know, dude. I know everything when it comes to this kind of stuff. Yeah. All right. The athletic stories of late, there are some truth to a lot of them. There's also some room for interpretation. And in that case, Diana was first to the plate with that. And she was right. Bill Belichick did call. He called Mike Tannenbaum and said, before I go and do this, what's the story with the Jets? What then Tannenbaum said to Belichick, well, we're not even considering hiring anyone till at least the end of the first week of January because we want to talk to all the top coordinators. I was like, say, well, are you interested in me because I don't have time. I've got a clock. I've got this UNC thing. And I think it was pretty much decided right then and there. But like Bill Belichick didn't call Woody Johnson, Jimmy, and beg him for an opportunity.
But I don't think Bill Belichick would work for Woody Johnson for 1 second.
I think he wanted to see and make sure he knew for sure that wasn't a possibility.
He's going to work for a guy that has his sons in the locker room talking about Madden. I mean,
okay, so like I said, there's room for interpretation in everything you're reading, and I would say in that one, Belichick, as much as you guys think he's the highest of high and the noble of noble, like he called and saw if there was an opportunity available, and they said we're not going to wait. We're going to wait, and he didn't want to wait. That was where the end of it was. But
the only thing that would make me believe that story for maybe a second is that the Jets are the most embarrassing franchise in sports and have been for their existence. So I could see them saying no to the greatest coach of all time. Like that would check out.
All the stuff that's going to come out with how it all went down with Belichick, and that's not like it's going to be rearview mirror. But like to your point, Jimmy, I never anticipated Bill Belichick being the coach of the Jets, and I think it would have been great. But I think he just wanted to uncover every stone before he did this giant leap into college.
I'll just wrap it with this: listen, if he would have coached in the NFL next season, it would have been great. We all would have been intrigued by it, but I would be willing to bet the three of us, when North Carolina plays its first game, we'll be locked into the TV and watching it. Like it's a good little. Now, let me give you another media story because it piggybacks sort of off Bill. What I said about Bill is we love when we don't expect something to happen in sports. Again, NBA, but also I think what we do, we would have some sort of take on it. The Woj bomb that he was leaving the insider business to go to St. Bonaventure. Schrager, let me start with you because you know the insider business. So when Woj says, listen, he just, getting calls from agents at 3 a.m., he had enough. Give me, what was your reaction to that as someone who does this?
Very surprised because he's the best at what he does and it's not even close. So I was like, something went down. Was there another opportunity waiting for him? Did one of the gambling companies offer him $100 million to just sit on his couch and tweet? Because that was the rumors 4 years ago that he and Schefter were going to be raking in the bucks from these gambling companies. But like, I don't know if those gambling companies are media companies anymore. It seems like that hasn't been the trend that everyone thought it was going to be. They seem to just sponsor stuff now. They're not like trying to churn out their own as much as they were supposed to back then. So I was interested. I actually know Woj very well. For a while there, he would go on Fox Sports 1 and we did the draft together. And like people don't even remember this, but like Woj was on FS1, guys.
Wait, what draft?
NBA draft. I would host the NBA draft for Fox Sports 1, which was like the auxiliary coverage. They would send us.
I never knew this.
Yeah, and me and Woj would do it. And like I was watching as someone who is an NFL insider, I was based in New York, and it was as simple as that. Like Schrager, you're based in New York, you're full time with Fox, like you're gonna host, and Woj is just gonna go. And like we would sit there, and he would know who was getting picked like 8 picks ahead of time. And I'm a draft guy. I'm like, this is insane.
Who else was on set with you?
It was just the two of us.
That is unbelievable. This is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever heard on this podcast.
And you could ask him about it. We had a fucking blast. We were great at it. Like it was fun because I would come at it from the NFL side and be like, all right, explain to me how
who's this guy
down. Yeah. And explain. I had no airs about me. I'd come in well researched, but like I didn't know the kid from Lithuania who was going 7th overall. I remember with the Porzingis draft, Woj had that like at 11 a.m. he was like, yeah, the Knicks are going to take this kid Porzingis. I'm like, whoa. Wow. So anyway, all that is not relevant to this. Then we find out.
It's relevant.
Oh, yeah. By the way, can we talk about Schrager's tennis coverage back in the day, too? When I see you coming to the documentary, breaking down Federer versus Nadal.
Marty Fish.
Sorry.
Dude, I come with a big resume of stuff and odd jobs. But the point is, I was shocked. And then I was concerned because the burnout factor is real. And I'm like, well, where is his? Because the money he's walking away from is real, guys. Like, and as knowing this industry, like, you don't give up jobs. What you do is you add more and more and more and more and just try to keep up with the Jones. And you never say I'm walking away, especially in that case. And then, of course, the Chris Mannix article, I believe it was Chris Mannix who wrote it.
Yeah, it was Chris.
Comes out and you realize there was a lot more going on and there was health stuff. But like the thought of Woj as a 50-year-old guy up living above a bar, like we live different lives. I'm not looking to go back to college and live above a St. Bonaventure bar, but he's chasing something that he truly loves and it's his happy place. And like, I think there's no nefarious stuff to it at all. I thought it was shocking, but it's just a story of a guy who didn't want to do the bullshit anymore. And he's saying, I'm taking my ball and I'm going back home.
55 years old. Go ahead, Perloff.
I would do that. I think going back to your college town would be a blast for a low pressure job. I went to school at a small place, Hanover, New Hampshire. I would love to just have a job that paid enough. I assume he's got enough money. I'm actually curious, like the wear and tear on these insiders. I know Jake Glazer has talked to your friend Peter a lot about mental health over the years. Seems like Shefty's pretty well adjusted, but I believe that wear and tear is really intense. I totally understand why he got out of that because like
what's the value?
What's he going to do? What's he going to add to his legacy now?
Yeah. And the money's real though. So like, Schefter makes a lot. I'm sure Rappaport, Glazer, all these guys make a lot. And it's because they're the best at what they do. And there's a premium for it. The question is at what cost? And when, Schefter was dramatic, was saying like this guy he was peeing and he didn't ever busted Schefter's chops for it because he was so dramatic about the fact that this guy was in the shower breaking news. But like, I've dabbled in that a lot, like over my career, and you get a 2 a.m. call and it's about, hey, this coach is going to be interviewing with this team. And it's like, all right, I'll be the first to post it. And the bosses, they don't seem to really care. And you get 15 retweets and you get 13 likes and your name is on the ESPN bottom line ticker for 30 seconds. It's like, when you live on that hamster wheel, I'm telling you guys, it's not fun. It's not.
Well, that's the thing. When the story first broke that he was leaving the insider business, it was shocking. And then I think when you heard everything he had to say, then it wasn't shocking. You had to hear him to really, when it happened, obviously I reached out to people at ESPN and the company line there across the board was, there's really nothing more to the story. He didn't want to do it anymore. And I don't really usually believe anything PR people tell me, but clearly that seemed to be the case. Like you guys said, didn't want to do it, burnt out, 55, goes back to his college, but it came out of nowhere, which made it fun. But, Shams will pick it up.
Yeah. And honestly, like, have you like watched an ESPN coverage and been throwing your remote at the screen being like, I can't watch without Woj.
Right.
And the show goes on.
Right.
Yeah. I'm all about St. Bonnie's basketball. When it's flipped from that to Bill Belichick in North Carolina, just all these weird situations.
All right. Now, the last like big media story I want to get into, Schrager, you probably should just sit this out because you can't talk about sports media in 2024 and now talk about what was going to be the biggest sports media story.
Good Morning Football being moved to LA or what?
I can get into that if you want.
No.
Which is obviously Brady, which we touched on earlier. So Perloff, give me your assessment of TB12.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to sound so lame, but he's getting better. I'm totally fine with Tom Brady. I have a lot of friends who love to nitpick him and pick him apart and say, oh, he's totally stiff.
Right.
He is not one of the guys that's trying to pretend he's one of the guys. I'm totally fine with him. I am not a guy who's overly critical on color commentators. I think he's definitely gotten better by tick, 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 tick. But I tell you, I have a lot of friends who have a problem with him. I do think one thing that's funny. There was a Christmas moment where he's in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt and they flash it. Might have been Thanksgiving. They have the whole crew up and they show Tom Brady. He looks around and KB goes, oh, look at Billy's wearing his Christmas sweater, and Tom looked around the room having no idea who Billy was. And I was like, oh, he's still Tom Brady, and he's trying hard. But again, I feel really weird saying to Peter because like Peter's on a bro hug basis with this man. He's totally fine. And by the way, I will say I think Romo has been pretty good this year, but
he's been much better.
The other day, Romo was up against Brady. Brady is much more down the middle. I've heard it before. I don't even sometimes know the difference between him and another telecast.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe my expectations for Brady were too big.
Yeah,
and he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. That's the problem. He's sort of like in the middle. I think he's getting way too much advice. I think people are probably like he comes out Saturday. I'm sorry. Saturday they did the Pittsburgh Raven game, and he said like chunks 500 times. Like someone's giving him bad advice, and he's taking it. I would love to just get him in a booth where he's not listening to anyone and just lets it fly. I thought he'd be much more critical. There's been the only guy who criticizes anyone is Troy. No one else does it except for Aikman. I thought Tom would do it, but he hasn't. But I think he's going to get better is if he can just like maybe stop listening to some people. But that's my take on it. Schrager, you're exempt because you work at Fox. You're not going to be objective.
I will add this.
You're not going to come on here and say anything negative, so don't bother.
I will add this. I'm not going to tongue. I think he's in a good position to succeed, and I think that we just are getting started. Like, I think the real eyeballs and the real nitpicking is going to be playoffs and Super Bowl. He's doing a Super Bowl, guys.
Right.
So that's when the casual fan who might not watch every game is going to be like, wait, Tom Brady's calling this game? That's his voice. So I'm curious to see if he can ramp it up and get to where everyone thinks he should be by then. But I'll say this as my closer. I work with Edelman. I work with Gronk. I work with Jason McCourty for many years. And I've got a really good relationship with Danny Amendola, Brian Hoyer, Garoppolo. These are my guys. Like, these are guys I text with. They all say Brady is the effing man. Brady is
right. So I'd like to see that on Sunday.
So here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
How do we unleash that?
Right.
And I think the only time that really, and like, there's cool moments. Like when he talks to Lamar on Saturday and Lamar's like, you're the GOAT, like that. We got to tap into that. We have to find, he did a sit down with Mahomes. It's been the best sit down with Mahomes that we've seen in 3 years. He did one that they filmed it. It was really stylized. The guy, Joel Santos, who put it together, and so the guy Skip who shoots it, like it's awesome. And it was like a version of Mahomes and Brady. We haven't seen him. Like, that's cool. Howard has had him on like 2 or 3 times in studio, and it's 30 minutes. And it's not edited, and it's not being coached, and it's just him talking with Coward, and they talk about issues, and that's a great version. So Fox has him. Burkhart's the best at what he does. I think Burkhart is as good as anybody at play-by-play, and like they have this structure of like we have to call the game, and we're not tapping into, or the ability to do that has been there. Maybe Brady hasn't gone there, but I will say it's there. We just have to find a way to maybe unleash it to everyone's liking, or he won't because he doesn't have to. And he's Tom Brady, and he's like, guys, I'm being paid to call the game. I'm not giving you every secret I got.
Well, can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I want more of him during the game. Like when they're doing the Ravens and the Steelers and Russell Wilson's running towards the end zone and gets hit for a fumble. Like, okay, take me through every single aspect of what he saw, what you did. I don't care if he's like has a good interview with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not that, whatever. I mean, go ahead.
Well, my co-host Maggie Gray is convinced, with no inside knowledge, that he's going to get so into the Raiders job that he's going to have to quit broadcasting. Now, it does seem interesting to me. Like that is an interesting dynamic to actually maybe pick a quarterback, maybe pick a coach, maybe have be a quasi GM president and a broadcaster. I guess it's a question for you, Peter. Like, is there a brewing conflict down the road?
No, it's the most overblown thing in the world. Like he can't sit in production meetings right now. Like,
but if he's picking between 2 quarterbacks, like now I'm just saying, like, you sure he doesn't want to put all his energy into the Raiders?
Oh, I thought you were talking about like whether he's got a conflict of interest. No, like owner of the Raiders, which I think is wild.
No. Does Tom Brady want to do the Raiders like full time?
I don't know.
And maybe put all his energy there.
I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce is the head coach right now. I don't know if Brady's going to have a voice on that. I have already been told by sources, and Ian Rappaport has reported it, he's going to play a very instrumental role in their quarterback evaluations this offseason.
Right. So if he becomes part of a team, he can't really be a broadcaster. Like if he wins at a certain point, You have to.
He's a
decide.
minority owner. Magic Johnson's a minority owner. We have him on TV all the time. Like,
you said very instrumental, though. You said very instrumental. Like it's painted like he's going to be the sort of shadow GM of this team. That's the way everyone seems to talk about it.
I think we have to cross that bridge when we get there. I don't necessarily think it shades his ability to call a game objectively. And also, like, everyone's allegiances, who plays for who and what, like, we're not idiots. Like, I don't know. I think if you know that he's the owner of the Raiders and he's calling this game, like, he might have better insight because he's actually doing the work in the draft now and knows these players inside and out, that maybe it can make him unleash even more. So I don't think the Raiders ownership thing, I personally am not at all have any issues with him calling football, owning an NFL team.
It's not a conflict. I just think, like you say it, like it happens all the time.
I think Perloff means from like a time standpoint. Like, does he have time to be heavily invested in the Raiders and time to be a good broadcaster? I think it's whatever one is.
He going to be grinding Iowa State tape and then like
I don't want him grinding Iowa State tape.
No, how much is he going to get into this Raiders job? Because I think he's so competitive that he might just dive all in.
It's funny. I used to work with Troy. I love Troy. In 2018, Fox had the draft. We aired the draft. We simulcasted it with NFL Network, and ESPN had one. And Troy called me up and it was like, I want to go to all these pro days. I want to go to Lamar's pro day. I want to go to Josh Allen's pro day. I want to go to Sam Darnold's pro day. It is now 6 years later. To this day, Troy will reference being at that rainy Sam Darnold pro day at USC. He says it was the only draft he's ever done it like that, and it's the best thing he's ever done. And he remembers Josh Allen up in Laramie, Wyoming, and throwing. Like, I think Brady being involved in the NFL from that level will be good for his broadcast career.
I'll say one last thing about Brady. I do like no one's allowed to like defend Brady or say they feel bad for Brady because he's making $375 million. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, won all these Super Bowls, good looking guy, blah, blah. I feel bad for him because every time he does a game, all everyone says is, where's Greg Olsen? Greg Olsen was better. He had to replace Greg Olsen. Like, that is very difficult to do that. When you had this guy, Greg Olsen, who was universally loved, everyone thought it was great. Then here comes big bad Tom Brady booting him out and getting 300. Like, right off the bat, people, like you say, your friends all have issues with him. Like, I don't think he can ever be given a fair chance, sort of because of the Greg Olsen thing from a lot of people.
I mean, he's Tom Brady, right?
Well, that's just, but that's a fact.
That's it. I'll say this, though. Greg and him actually this summer at that Fox retreat were hanging at a table together. And like, to Greg's credit, I think he and Tom have...
Well, it has nothing to do with Greg. It's the fans
but like,
and the viewers.
It could be weird. And they both know the situation. They're both very self-aware, and they're like, we didn't choose it to go down this way, and they're friendly.
Right. You guys have any other stories you want to drop in and mention? I got some other things we could discuss.
I got one more.
Go ahead.
Shannon Sharpe and Katt Williams.
Awesome.
I thought you were going to see what I had written down was Shannon Sharpe leaving his phone on while he was having sex.
Let
me just say, accidentally going live.
I don't know about
Instagram.
that one
Accidentally.
As well. I would say this. You want to talk about a sports voice breaking the cultural zeitgeist and owning a moment in a way that no one has in years. Stephen A. hasn't done this. Colin Cowherd hasn't done this. Skip Bayless hasn't done this. Shannon Sharpe's tell-all with Katt Williams broke the internet, broke all sorts of ratings, and I think it showed that some guys from our little sports world can do more than just talk sports. And the Club Shay Shay, I also saw the Marlon Wayans interview I thought was excellent. I don't know Shannon. I don't. Like, we've worked in the same place. We've worked in the industry. Like, we're in the same world. Like, I'm not currying favor to Shannon Sharpe. I am just saying that that Katt Williams interview was as up there with anything I've seen or heard in the last decade as far as breaking the cultural. It was like Martin Bashir and Michael Jackson. It was that big, walking them through the mall. So I would give Shannon credit for taking his platform and using it in a way that we haven't seen from a sports personality before.
Yeah. By the way, I was actually thinking, this is, I guess, a media story. I have a new unifying theory. I thought about this as we were about to do this. What are the best sports podcasts? Like, what do they all have in common? I think it's everybody wants funny. I'm being dead serious. Like, Katt Williams, obviously funny, but number one is Part of My Take. Bill Simmons, Levitard. I'm looking at the list. New Heights, Jerry Ferrara's.
New Heights is not funny.
Well, yep. Oh, you think it's dead serious? Those guys
you're comparing New Heights to Part of My Take in terms of humor?
Yeah, I'm just saying DP show is up there high. Like, people want, and Dan's hysterical. Like, people want funny. I think that's a really important thing. Like, for all the network, and you know what's not funny? ESPN. But generally, though, I don't think it's an accident. And I think Peter,
I think
McAfee,
I appreciate that.
hysterical. And
I think
your show is very
McAfee's funny. Like
Yeah,
I think
Good Morning
McAfee
Football,
broke.
buddy.
I think McAfee broke a lot of these ESPN personalities in a way
Yeah.
last week because he's willing to take the piss out of it all. And like even having Shane Gillis on set on College Game Day, like take a shot at Saban, like this stuff does not happen.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Everyone is so self-serious on TV. And then, McAfee comes at it and he's like, I don't know, let's just say it. And his guys are really clever. So like, I think he is funny, but you're right. It's this, everyone's very serious.
I was going to say, I wanted to mention McAfee from the standpoint of, I think where McAfee, in terms of the year of 2024, like what stood out most was what he's done for Game Day. Like that bit with the kicking contest on Game Day.
Awesome.
Is unbelievable. He gets those crowds riled up. He stands on the chair. He chants. He sings. Like, okay, that's all. Like, but that kicking contest has become a thing. Like on Saturday mornings, people love that. Maybe you're not locked in on a Saturday morning, but people are checking the clips on YouTube, on Twitter, blah blah blah. So, and
I'd say for better or worse, like if you're not a Tony Hinchcliffe fan or you're not a Shane Gillis fan, like those guys, it would be just awkward if it wasn't Pat there, who is the ultimate like bridge builder for like young funny comedians. And they've had a lot of different, like that Timothy Chalamet, like I don't know if that works if there's no McAfee there like freaking out.
That would have worked because the guy was like Rain Man with college football.
He was great, but like I don't know if Desmond Howard and Kirk Herbstreit are selling him. Like, McAfee freaking out and being like, this guy knows ball, like that adds to it.
Well, and McAfee, he's got a good thing with Saban and he's got a very good thing with Herbstreit. So
you're not mentioning
and Belichick.
Are we not going to talk about
Game Day?
Aaron Rodgers? I mean,
I'm talking about game. I was talking about Game Day. I'm talking about Game Day.
Yeah, that's but it's still, I think it's all part of the McAfee stew. I was reading a story on how influential he is. Like, it's all connected in a way, and wrestling too, Jimmy. I mean,
what do you mean by that, though?
He's great on wrestling.
Connected.
Like his voice is consistent throughout all these different mediums. Like, and I think what he does is really hard. I love. I used to be on Dan Patrick's show where Dan was a central point and the Danettes were the voice. And like he's recreated that just well. And then he takes that same like kind of funny, irreverent energy to Game Day. He takes it to wrestling. Like, I mean, he's really the man in that.
As the wrestling guy here, I can tell you he's really, really good. Because he's not just like completely in like wrestling guy mode. He does a little bit of like the winking to the audience. Mm-hmm. And he's just got the right energy level for that crowd. It was funny. I went 2 weeks ago to the Nassau Coliseum because they had like the Saturday night's main event here. He came out. I mean, he got like the second biggest pop of the night after Cody Rhodes. It was crazy. He's really good on it. And I should have mentioned, I'll just throw this in quickly. When we were doing the biggest stories of the year, the WWE and Monday Night Raw going to Netflix is a huge story. But go ahead.
I would also say what Andrew was saying about like the idea of like, hey, you're just watching a bunch of guys and gals hang out, and it's hard to duplicate. Mm-hmm. But I think DP show had it for years. I think Matt has it. Sorry, they established it. McAfee, that whole entire group. I think the PMT, like I think Billy Mays and I think Hank and like I go on that show a lot. Like when they used to have Jake Marsh on, all those guys, and then you bring in Mincy and all that idea of like it's a bunch of characters and that it's very Howard Stern and it's very appreciated. I would say Mace and Cameron, I don't listen to their podcast often, but there are clips that'll come out and the laugh and the voice that they have, they're talking NBA. And I think Jeff Teague had a breakout year NBA wise, as far as you see him on these social clips having things to say. Like, I think it's that feeling of the cameras are on and the recording is on, but you're kind of just overhearing a bunch of friends talk. And there's something for that.
Yeah. Is it bad as someone who hosts a podcast? I don't listen to many podcasts at all.
I don't listen to sports podcasts typically. I listen to PMT and I listen to Simmons. Really, that's it.
I listen to a lot just to get information. Like, let's not forget just hanging out with two normal guys drinking red wine. JJ Redick and LeBron's podcast was that well received? Like, did people watch that? It was the exact opposite of everything you just described. It was the most artificial.
Yeah, it did not catch on. Yeah, but he also left.
JJ took the job.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think LeBron has a lot of critics. It just felt a little bit like they were breaking down NBA stuff that was at a level above the fans. It wasn't the same vibe you're describing.
I just don't know how people have time to listen to every podcast. Like, that's what I find. Like, you know what podcast the podcast I love is your coworker, Kyle, because it's 10 minutes. That's the perfect length for a podcast. 10 takes with Kyle Brandt, 10 minutes.
See,
perfect.
and yet I'll listen to a 3-hour, 30-minute Joe Rogan interview with Tim Dillon, and I'll laugh my ass off. I fly 7 hours every week, 2 ways. So like, and you know, my tastes in podcasts can range from Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher to Theo Vaughn interviewing a garbage man. But like, I just love conversation, and I think that we're in a golden era of podcasts. I mean, I was listening to Tom Papa interview Jim Gaffigan, and he said, bands don't sell out anymore. They do, like the big acts do, but the mid-tier act don't. But like, you could do a live podcast taping and sell out, you know, Beacon Theater in a day. Like, that's the popularity of like podcasts right now.
I love that you're such a podcast guy. We need more people like you.
I love them.
I hate that I'm such a cliche that I think I listen to the same exact podcast, like to the T. And,
Breaking Bread with Tom Papa, very good.
Smartless, Conan, Mark Maron, now Ted Danson and Woody in the mix. Like there's a cycle of where the guests go on the same 5 podcasts. And I heard Gaffigan in 3 different places. It's a little bit getting repetitive, but it's still awesome.
Well, it's like the old SMT, the Satellite Media Tour, where you're hopping on and you're hitting your message points. But I tend to listen to the comedy. You guys know, I always say that. I listen to like Are You Garbage? And I listen to like the podcast that no one would expect me to listen to. I'm often listening to the comedy podcast because I just want to shut my brain off from sports discourse. And I also self-serious sports podcasts, and you know who you are, like where you're preaching at a camera. Like I don't know who that's for.
Name names.
No, it is in general. That's a whole genre of like, here's my take, and like, yeah, and I'm like, I don't have that. Yeah.
I have written down here, we should discuss this for a moment, because if we're talking about the biggest sports media stories here, now you guys are on your kick here with your podcast, your comedians. I mean, if let's say you were doing like the top 10 biggest moments of 2024 in the sports world, not just games, the Brady roast.
Oh my God.
Was as big of an event in 2024 as there was in terms of that. Still to this day, and again, I feel bad saying this because Peter's on, but like Fox won't let Brady do any interviews. The one question I have for Tom is, I need to know the exact mindset.
Still the number 1 rated thing on Netflix, I think. I checked Netflix recently. It was still number 1. True? I think so.
I couldn't believe when it was happening. I'm like, is this really happening? Is this really, are they really talking about his ex-wife like this right in front of him? I'm still in shock.
But a lot of those comedians, I think, got big in sort of the mainstream world because of that roast.
I think it did a lot of favors for Tony Hinchcliffe and Nikki Glaser.
Absolutely.
I think Nikki Glaser was already very established through the roast, and then you saw Amazon quickly scooped her up, and now she does stuff for Amazon's football coverage. I would also say Andrew Schultz, who finished the roast, like he was known, but like being on that kind of validated to a different audience. So I agree. And
it didn't help Ben Affleck.
It did not. Nor I don't think Burt Kreischer was hilarious, or Tom Segura. Like the guys that came and brought it, like were great. Yeah. Gronk and Edelman, obviously. I have a regret though. I was invited. I don't think I would have been on the dais. I was invited, and it was just like, it didn't seem even logical to fly out to LA. But like, I got an email saying we'd love for you to be, attendance or whatever. And I might have been involved, but I kicked myself because that seemed like that was a pretty cool room.
It got a lot of attention. The other thing that got a lot of attention, again, Netflix, not good attention, was the Tyson Paul fight, which I did not watch.
See, I did, and I didn't have any buffering issues. And I know I'm a Fox and NFL Network employee. Like, I thought it was a bit strange that Rosie Perez was calling the fight and Cedric the Entertainer was there, not being funny.
Rosie Perez was doing play-by-play of that fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was the commentator. She was one of them. And like,
wait, Perloff, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched the undercard and fell asleep, but I did know Rosie Perez. I heard her talking. Yeah,
she was on it.
Knows boxing way better.
I had no idea.
She was local to Tyson. Like, she's a New York person, but like, I didn't have the buffer issues. I kind of liked it that it felt sort of like a different approach to it, where they could have easily just said, here's Jim Lampley, here's, whoever, and we're just going to roll out the same boxing coverage. And I don't know, it sounds like the NFL stuff, they're going to go a little bit more paint by numbers, and here's how it's been done before. But I kind of liked the boxing, that it was kind of felt like an event, and it was a little bit bizarre, but it was a talking point, and we were all texting about it and tweeting about it. And can't imagine the last boxing match we did that for.
Jimmy, is that number of
who's in the
viewers-
we? I wasn't part of this.
Wait, did 100 million people watch it? Like, is that number legit? Jimmy, you know this stuff.
Yeah, I don't buy that for 1 second.
Are you rooting for great success with the Christmas games, or are you rooting for colossal failure? Jimmy?
In terms of the ratings?
No, not really. Just like the whole thing. Like, it's hard to put on a game.
Well, how's it going to be a failure? You have
if the thing doesn't work, or if the announcers in the studio aren't good.
Well, the announcers are Noah Eagle and Ian Eagle. That's going to be good. And I'm not rooting for like buffering. I want to watch the game. Why would I root for technical
I
issues?
think there's a sadist in you that loves like when the world melts with this stuff.
No, I don't want my football interrupted with buffering. Absolutely. I mean, listen.
Yeah, but wait.
I will make the best of it, and I'll write a column destroying Netflix. So there is an upside. But the last thing I want on Christmas when I'm watching the Chiefs play the Steelers is buffering. Why on earth would I want that?
Well, I'll tell you why, Jimmy, because there are a lot of fans who don't like the spreading out of the football.
Yeah, I don't either, but I want to still enjoy the game. It's a ridiculous question.
Well, listen, I just think that you could root against this because if this fails, then the NFL is going to be like, well, we're not going to keep on putting these subscription games up.
I despise watching a game on a streaming service, but I've come to peace with it. And like CBS and Fox are done. Those Sunday 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games, they're going to go to Netflix, Apple, Google, Amazon. Like the days, like it's over. Like this is what's going to happen.
Jimmy, negativity sells in your world, I think. And I'm saying,
I just said, if the buffers, I'll write a column, but I'm not rooting
today,
for it.
For example, we're recording this on Monday. Kirk Herbstreit had a throwaway line about First Take. They came out guns blazing. Right. That's got to be clickbait fever for you guys talking about it and breaking it down. And I know clickbait seems negative, but it is the story of the day media wise. If Netflix is just awesome and goes well, I don't anticipate anyone writing an article the next day being like, Netflix was great. We loved it. It was cool. Well, and Robert Griffin III and Drew Brees were awesome. And guess what? It was really cute having JJ Watt on a broadcast that TJ's playing. Like, I just don't see that. I see everyone kind of salivating for this to go a different direction.
I can only speak for myself. So I just write off of what happens. So if there's issues, I'll write about the issues. I wouldn't write about the pregame show because I have zero intention of watching it. And to dispel your little theory there, last year when Sunday Ticket went to YouTube, that first week on that Monday, I wrote a positive review of how good it was. So
you did. So eat shit, Schrager.
Yeah,
nobody's.
I was going to say go fuck yourself, but
clickbait is triggering. I shouldn't have said clickbait.
I'm fine with clickbait. I'm pro clickbait, and I'll do it. But I got to believe what I'm writing.
But you could be anti-Netflix, anti-Amazon because companies are making billions of billions. Like, who's cheering for the big guy? Another win for Netflix and Amazon. Yeah,
I'm not specifically anti-Netflix or anti-Amazon. I'm anti. I don't want to watch a game on streaming because I want to be able to flip the channels.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
That's it.
Yeah, but the youngsters have YouTube TV. And
can I steal the pod for 1 second and ask you guys, put you on the spot? Give me a name of a man or a woman in sports broadcasting that you thought had a good year that we don't just shower with. Like, I don't want to hear about, Ben the dog or, or whoever it is, McAfee. Like, give me someone that isn't always in the cultural zeitgeist who had a good year.
Is this so you can praise Carissa Thompson in your annual Carissa Thompson?
That was big last year. That was big. That was aggregated. That was clickbait. That I actually defended a colleague of 20 years amidst
who everybody loves.
Oh, please. I defended her too. I wrote a whole column about it. Clickbait nonsense.
Wow. This is a hard on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, really.
Nobody talks about it. Yeah.
Not even nobody. Like, it could be anyone that you enjoy that doesn't necessarily get the shine.
Well, I'll say this because I was going to mention this, and I'll try to think of something better, but I did want to mention this. Well, I'll mention two things. I'll give you a show that I thought had a little bit of a resurgence, and we touched on it a little earlier. Inside the NFL, it shouldn't be called Inside the NFL because it should not be called the same name as the Len Dawson, Nick Bonacani show. But they actually hit on something this year with Belichick being there with Chad Johnson and Chris Long and Ryan Clark, where it was very interesting every week. Like, Chad Johnson with Belichick had like this odd couple feel to it. And it was actually like, it's weird too. It's on like on all these weird, it's like on NFL Network and the CW. So I would catch it here and there. And I found it entertaining.
Yeah, it airs before the NFL Network Sunday show again. So all Sunday morning, you're waiting for the NFL Network show. Like it's on for that hour. That's where I usually watch it. I'm at Fox at 5 a.m. watching it. It's good. Yeah,
because you wouldn't think Chad Johnson would bring it on that show, but he's pretty good. And then obviously they have Belichick there with Chris Long, who I love, and Ryan Clark. So that show's good. And I will give credit to, because I've bashed this show now for many years, Hard Knocks had a massive resurgence with the giant offseason edition, which is basically going to get their GM fired.
Great call.
And the Bears edition was terrible, but the Hard Knocks in season going on right now with the AFC North, I think is tremendous. The off-season Giants and the in-season AFC North have been, I think, excellent editions of Hard Knocks.
All right. I like this. Andrew, what about you?
These are going to sound like personal shout outs, but it's not really. I don't know, you guys. We have to do a lot of college football because where our affiliates are. College, the Cover 3 college football podcast. So it's Fornelli and Bud and Chip and Danny Cannell.
I've never heard of this podcast. Tell me about
it. It's a super popular college football podcast. It's
Schrager's going to add the 65th podcast to his weekly rotation.
It is like it's really become the voice of record for college football, I would argue. And all guys, like, they are super, super funny. If you want to, I would say I think they're the number one college football only podcast. You can hear Fornelli's on Potter My Take all the time, but they're really, really good. And I'm going to give a shout out to a couple friends. All this wagertainment stuff. We have a guy on, Nick Costos, who's on BetQL, just got a new show on NBC. He's with Femi, and he's like kind of a rising star in the betting world. Jimmy, I don't know if he's very funny, seems to be getting a lot of opportunities. And Femi, who was with Mike Lombardi before, is great. So I do think that's one thing. The rise of wagertainment is a real thing. And to do it right and not be obnoxious about like betting, to me, is good, Jimmy, because you know that I've had the system for a while. It's not really working, so I'm always looking for more advice.
Oh, you got a system.
Yeah, Perloff hit me one day at Sports Illustrated that he had a betting system. Which, if he had a betting system, he wouldn't be working at Sports Illustrated. Those are a couple shout outs, especially in the podcast world. Okay, Schrager, which Fox colleagues do you want to shout out?
It's actually not, and I actually, through fear of our Fox colleagues,
Julian Edelman. You want to mention him and Gronk for the 50th time, and then you could text them.
Yeah, because they're listening to this shit. The guy that I always am like intrigued by, and it's such a crowded space, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure, and now it's been a couple years, but like Ryan Fitzpatrick to me, I think is only scratching the surface. And I honestly think he's not being utilized well enough.
I think you're 100% right, by the way, but go ahead.
I barely have a relationship with him. I don't talk with him often.
Do you have his phone number in your phone?
I do, but it's in a group thing with the Amazon crew because we have them on our Good Morning Football show. So it's not like I text with him individually, and I'm not going to send him this. You can. Fitzpatrick takes shots. He took a shot at Brady earlier this year when Brady,
because he's the motherfucker.
Yes, he took the shot at Brady. He took a shot at Rodgers. He took a shot at Ryan Clark wearing a suit or a hat at the Cowboys game. Like, I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick gives a fuck. And we show Ryan Fitzpatrick on Amazon, and he kind of goes that way because he's got the funny, zany, like, I don't care about the zany clothes and the beard.
Right.
He has things to say. And I feel like a good sports executive or a good non-sports executive should be listening to what he says or seeing what he tweets about, because he doesn't care. He is not one of those who lives in a porcelain house and is worried about giving, like, he has made his money. He does this stuff for fun, and you can tell. And it comes off as very good-hearted and not like I'm trying to cause an online feud, but he says things. So I almost feel like we've barely like, I'd rather watch Ryan Fitzpatrick host a game show than 95% of the ex-athletes we see trotted out in there or whatever. Like, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick to me hasn't been utilized in a way at all that we could even see what he could be, because I think the guy says shit, smart, obviously, and has played with everyone, and is a pretty well-liked teammate too. So he's got like that backing. So Fitzy, if you're listening, let's find a vehicle, because I think you're just scratching the surface.
I'm going to make a statement right here. That was the best take of the podcast. Every single thing you said was dead on. And you're right, because they want to portray him as the goofball guy and just let the guy talk.
No. And that's a good way to get in the door. Like, here, he's shirtless in Buffalo. But we've seen that. And then he talks, and I don't care about the football stuff as much as others might, which he has. Right. But like, he was critical of someone this year, a player on the pregame show. It might have been Jared Goff, and then Goff got on there afterwards and was like, "Oh, I heard I was a poor man's Alex Smith," and it was like, "Oh, there's actual some bite there." But like Fitzy took it, and he wasn't like awkward about it. He's like, "That's what I said."
Well, how come why does the Amazon show not? I feel like Sherman doesn't have enough time to talk. Fitzpatrick doesn't have enough time to talk. I don't think any of the guys have enough time to talk. There's something about that show that I have trouble grabbing onto. I'm not sure what it is because I like every single person involved.
I haven't seen enough of it pregame because usually I'm putting my kids to bed and it's like, all right, it's game time, and I love Al and whatever. But the clips I see, I think they have a lot of people involved. Like Taylor Rooks is involved, Marshawn Lynch is involved, but like, I know the producers, they're great. Like Spoon was our Fox NFL kickoff producer. He does it there. So I don't think it's a fault with Amazon. I'm saying, what else can we do with Fitzpatrick? Because I think that guy's really good.
I think that whole show needs more time is my point. I feel like that crew could do like an hour pregame show. Like
they have the endless postgame. Yeah. I've seen that. Like they interview the players and they have Nikki Glazer. So like it's there. It's just everyone's in bed. It's 1:30 in the morning when that's on. Yeah.
I think everything you said is dead on, and I feel like there's another guy out there like that. I didn't mention his name though because I thought maybe you would say, "Oh, his name is too big, he's too popular." But I think JJ Watt's the same way. And he's like limited on CBS. They got him on the desk with 5 other people. You're never going to really say anything to ruffle feathers on CBS, but he's actually outstanding on McAfee. Yeah. And maybe, again, this is a McAfee thing, getting things out of people. And he mixes it up. I mean, he ripped Aaron Rodgers when Aaron Rodgers came out with the thing about now he's taking cinnamon water or whatever. Then he mixes it up with anyone that says Myles Garrett is better than TJ Watt. But he has takes. He rips the refs on Twitter whenever there's when
he rips the refs and he rips the fining of players, like that's when it's like, ooh, that ruffles the league's cage. Right. That rattles the cage. I like that.
And he had to take about like, I don't remember maybe if it was pass interference or roughing the passer, but he's like, they can't get those right. How are they going to get the hip tackle right? That's now a penalty. Like he has a lot of opinions. He has a lot of takes. Obviously very well respected. Again, like CBS has him jumping through the table in Buffalo. Okay, fine. Like
that's
whatever.
Not for me. That's not for me.
Me too.
And like I also think the whole patronizing Buffalo's fan base and doing the table jumping in the wings, like we've done it this year. Like it's like the one like thing that like I'm always like like it's just so easy and everyone does it.
But if you pay attention to Watt on Twitter and on McAfee, very opinionated. You may not agree, but like very opinionated, which that's what we want.
So what do you guys think of Jason Kelce? I mean,
I was just going to ask.
Enough. Yeah. I've had enough.
Okay. See, I think he's
had enough.
I think he's good.
Had enough.
He's a football. Enough. He knows his football. Man, he knows football.
That's the thing. He knows the football.
He really knows it.
Does he ever talk about football? Because anytime I see him, it's I'm drinking beer and taking my shirt off and
get it. I like him. I would love.
I don't think I've ever seen him talk about football.
I would love to get in a room with him and do a show or do a talk, like because I think he hasn't even scratched the surface on the football shit. And that locker room, that Eagles stuff. Forget Brother and forget Taylor and forget Kylie and all that. I get it. It's a machine, and people resent the machine. I get it.
Right.
I want him to stand out because I think he's more than maybe the beer chugging and all that stuff. I think he's really talented. And I think that Eagles locker room is fascinating. And he's still relevant enough in that building where like we can get an insight into Jalen Hurts. And we haven't really gotten all that stuff publicly.
Perloff probably loves him. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, Kylie went to Lower Merion where I went. She's the most famous alumni. She could do no wrong. I wonder, do you think the NFL could ever have a Charles Barkley? To me, it would be like Chase and Kelce.
No,
maybe you mentioned Fitzpatrick.
Because the networks would be terrified. They will shut it down in a second. They won't let it. Goodell will tell them to stop. Oh. There's no chance. There's no chance. The NFL media, no offense, Schrager, they're terrified. They're terrified of Goodell. There's no chance. There's no chance.
I will watch Netflix and enjoy every point Manti Te'o makes on the pregame show Wednesday.
All right, I'm not sure you're right, Jimmy, because I imagine if there was a Barkley for the NFL, how popular that would be.
Well, why isn't there?
I don't know, because Barkley's a unique personality.
Well,
Maybe
yeah, I mean,
Barkley says on air that the product sucks. You'll never find that in the
right.
NFL.
Goodell will have the show canceled.
I don't even think that. I don't think people believe it. Like, I don't know.
Barkley's like, I didn't watch the first half. I was watching Rizzoli and Isles.
Yeah. If Nate Burleson went on CBS and said something bad about the NFL, Goodell would call and the screen would go to black.
That ain't happening.
Yeah, it's not. It's the Goodell. It's not happening. All right. Look at the gambling. The gambling's legal. The TV is covered with spreads all over the place, but the broadcasters can't say the spread is 3. They've got money from DraftKings. They got money from FanDuel. The scroll on every game gives you the spread. They go to the announcers saying, go bet this in the studio. But during the game, if Joe Buck said, well, the line is 3, Goodell would have an aneurysm. So it's not happening. All right. Let me throw some pop culture things at you here to wrap this up. We had the end of Curb in March this year. Mm-hmm. I loved the final season. The last episode with Jerry coming back. Brilliant tie-in to the Seinfeld finale. Did we love it? Did we hate it? What did we think?
I don't remember it. I remember liking it. I have no
Jerry
recollection
came back when
No. I'm just saying, like, it didn't.
Larry went to jail for the voting thing because he gave the woman water.
I love the season. I cherished every last second of it. I love that show. But I don't remember the finale at all. And it's 6 months ago or whatever. It doesn't do anything for me.
On a related note of Curb,
the
best book I read this year was Michael Richards' autobiography. If you have not read it, make sure you read it.
Okay.
I didn't know that was out.
You know, I'm a reader. I loved John Stamos's book. I loved Henry Winkler's book. I've read these both this year. I will 100% read Michael Richards' book. I assume
Henry Winkler, I'm writing down. I'm definitely going to read that. All right.
I assume he goes into 2005 at the Comedy Store.
He sure does.
Wow.
Yeah.
You are reading.
But
no time for Dostoevsky when you got John Stamos' biography.
I'll read any memoir, dude. Rob Lowe's memoir is one of the best memoirs I've ever read. I mean, I'll read any memoir. I love that shit. Hollywood stuff.
I want you to text me as soon as you're done with the Michael Richards one, because I think it's one of the best books. Like, you have no idea what the guy's like. Like a true, like, there's a lot going on in his brain.
Okay.
A lot.
Can I give you one more book? It's called Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions by a producer named Ed Zwick. And it's all about his life in Hollywood. And he tells stories that you usually don't get. It's like a tell-all about his life in Hollywood and how Julia Roberts screwed him from a movie once, and how...
Oh, don't tell me that. I love Julia Roberts.
Yeah, no. And it's like how Matthew Broderick's mom was a nightmare on the set of Glory. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like a tell-all. Ed Zwick. I don't know if it ever got the bestsellers or anything.
Hits, Flops, and what now?
Hit, Flops, and Other Illusions. It was a joyride to read, and it's like one of those that you don't get anymore.
Got it.
You know, it's good. You guys read there was a book about the guys who did Airplane and Naked Gun, and I know you guys are huge. You'll love
Zucker Brothers, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Just like the jokes and how all the jokes came up. You'll like that one.
Jimmy, you like that Saturday Night movie, right?
Yeah, not as like it's not a great film.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it, and some of my friends hated it. I loved it.
Andrew,
I did too.
I
did too. That was probably I liked it a lot.
J.K. Simmons is Milton Berle. Oh my God!
Oh, it's so good, so good. Yeah, really good. 2 documentaries. Well, the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. If you ever watch wrestling,
I haven't seen it.
If you've ever watched wrestling, you have to watch it because it's not
6 episodes, right? It's Simmons, right?
It goes like that.
Did you watch wrestling as a kid?
Yes, of course.
Then you have to watch it because just the history, again,
the nostalgia alone.
They didn't go in deep on what's going on at this moment, but yes, the nostalgia and just the trip down memory lane. Highly recommended. That was done by Bill Simmons. And then if you didn't watch, I think it was 2 parts on HBO, The Sopranos.
Yes,
David Chase.
Yes.
Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah.
So good.
My documentary.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Enigma, the Aaron Rodgers. I'm not kidding. I thought it was really well done. And I said it on Simmons's podcast last week, and he pushed back because obviously there's Aaron Rodgers fatigue, and I don't think anyone wants to see. I thought it was a really cool way to do a documentary in a very crowded space on athlete produced and athlete driven stuff. Like I'm kind of over all of that. Here's my story. Follow me around. But Rodgers was really vulnerable, and the football stuff. And I didn't read Ian O'Connor's book. I'm told Kyle Brandt was like, it's very similar to what you're getting in O'Connor's book, but like the football stuff is really good. And they've got really great archival footage of Rodgers in college and early with the Packers. And I thought it was excellent. I loved it.
He doesn't want attention, though, Aaron Rodgers. Did you watch it, Perloff?
Yeah, I've watched. Yeah, everyone you guys are talking about, great.
But wait, but I'm saying, did you watch the Rodgers one? Do you have a take on the Rodgers?
I liked it. I love the Butte JC. I said that the personal stuff. I gotta tell you, I'm like, I've heard it all. I've said it all. Man, when you hear him say about his family again, like that's an intense documentary. I enjoyed it. Well,
there's this part of him that I think is interesting. He wins the Super Bowl and he's 2011 and he says, he thought this would fill his cup in life. And he's like, now what? And then he goes on these ayahuasca retreats. And I'm laughing with my wife. I'm like, if I had time and money and was single in my 40s, maybe I would do this stuff too. And feel like I'm just too busy and trying to provide that. Like, I can't imagine like having the time to go and do this like self-searching quest. I'm almost jealous that he does.
Well, I was going to say, are we saturating the market too much with documentaries? I was going to ask you because I know like there's like
10 years ago we were.
Yeah, now it's like
if they're good and if they're about things I care about, like I have to be interested.
But are you still worried? Last year we talked about the Florida Gators disaster of a documentary.
Yeah, I never watched it.
That's what I'm worried about. And I was worried Enigma was going to be like that, a puff piece, and I don't think it was. I think they towed that line fine.
What else, Andrew, were you going to promote? What were you going to say? Something I need to see.
Oh, God, no. I can't remember what documentaries was this year. I recently watched the Elton John documentary. Very much.
I haven't seen it. It's the last concert or something?
Yes.
Or it's all about Elton John?
Last concert, but it's a lot of archival footage.
Okay.
I got to tell you, I'll do any sports, any music. I'll watch any music.
That's the problem. That's why you think there's saturation. Now are your choices.
Did you guys see the Albert Brooks documentary? Did you watch that one?
I watched it in one sitting. Amazing.
Very good. Some of the interviews, I didn't need to hear from the girl from Haim talking about Albert Brooks. Like they went overboard with like the interviews, but like the footage itself was really good. Like I'm not convinced that Tiffany Haddish has a long library of Albert Brooks bits, but we got her thoughts on it. Like that's sometimes, they try to get as many guests in that chair as possible. What about the Yacht Rock documentary? Did you watch that?
No, but that's like over the next week. That will be the first thing I watch.
Yeah. By the way, the wrestling one, the archival stuff, the stuff that they've done that I wasn't paying attention to was so disgusting, Jimmy. I cannot. The plot lines that they rejected it's crazy.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it this week.
Dude,
I hate that. I don't like that take. It's not. It's a show. It's a story. It's not real.
There's no show where Vince McMahon wants to have a storyline where he impregnates his daughter and has to get.
But he's not really. But he's not impregnating his daughter. It's a scripted thing. It's not real.
Who thinks of that script? That
Vince
is
McMahon.
insane.
That's the whole point of the documentary.
Yeah, it is beyond. Like you can't say like that's in the realm of normal, Jimmy. Nothing about any of that stuff is normal.
Okay, but have you ever watched like a daytime soap opera?
Yes, they don't have fathers impregnating daughters.
I thought they did.
I don't think so.
I haven't watched it. I've not a Days of Our Life watcher, so I'm not sure. But it wasn't like someone a witch or something, or like a devil. Whatever.
But can I get credit, by the way? Do you know this year I went to WrestleMania, Jimmy? Did you go to WrestleMania? I went to WrestleMania in Philadelphia wearing a Roddy Piper shirt.
Listen, I was gonna have this take, and I said if I give this take, people are gonna be like, he's not serious and da da da. The best thing I saw all year was the WrestleMania main event.
But isn't WrestleMania like? I'm again outside person looking in.
Yeah,
isn't it 2 days, 18 hours?
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, it's 2 days. It's more like 2 days, 8 hours.
So I think since Nick Khan and this new brass took over, there's like media touches where it's like, all right, Joe Tessitore should be doing these matches. Pat McAfee should be.
Well, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, they get it. They're treating it like a real thing. Like that Leaf Fitting came from ESPN. Right. He's now involved there. Mm-hmm. Now, I also feel like they're tapping into you guys a little bit. Jimmy, my friend Kyle Brandt, and they're smart. They're like, let's get some sports media people who are involved and let's have them, and like the experience that Kyle said that he had at WrestleMania, like they put him and his kid in the greatest seats. And it's like, I think that's also going to be important as Netflix takes over. Like, it seems like it's a warmer, fuzzier, more accessible WWE than the dark days of like Vince's like worst
100%. Right? Yeah. 100%. I think if you can go to a live show, it's a spectacle. Like it's real. But the reason I say WrestleMania was you had Cody Rhodes beat Roman Reigns, which was in and of itself this cool thing. But they had The Undertaker come out. John Cena came out. They had all these nostalgia surprises, which I thought made it a really cool event.
Yeah. We had Chris Jericho on for an hour the other day, by the way. I just want to point out wrestlers.
He's not WWE.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like we're like wrestler and AEW makes themselves. They make the wrestlers available, and they're great interviews. There's just
Peter had Jesse the Body Ventura last week.
Yeah, he was in our building too. I missed him. I heard he's still in good shape.
He was great. He had a great voice. And then he said, like, I'm going to take on Trump. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. Let's
stick to the wrestling. Yeah. We've covered a lot. I mean, I have things written down that I wanted to mention, but they're all personal to me. So I don't want to
throw out one-liners. Everyone listening is driving.
Major League Baseball had a phenomenal playoffs.
Oh,
the Mets story was great. And you know what you had? You had a renaissance of the radio calls in the playoffs with Howie Rose in New York, Tom Hamilton in Cleveland, and Bob Uecker in Milwaukee. And it seemed like every day there was some other crazy comeback win. The calls were going nuts on Twitter. Baseball had a really good, I thought, renaissance for the playoffs. They're not going to be the NFL. They're not going to be, but for baseball.
I went to like 4 different baseball playoff games this year. I haven't gone in 2 decades. I'm saying this, so like New York matters. I'm sorry. And LA matters. I'm sorry. And when LA is playing in New York in 2 straight series, and you have all these Dodgers fans who many of them made the trip, that was for many years it was Devil Rays, Marlins, and whatever. It was hard for me as a Yankee fan as a kid and a New Yorker to rally around a different team every year. The Yankees and Dodgers, there's a power to those markets.
Let the Phillies fan chime in.
Well, no, I actually think I'm also a quasi Dodgers fan. I think Shohei is a bigger needle mover than the Yankees.
People think.
No. I think the Yankees had carried the sport for 30 years. Now I think the Dodgers, and specifically because of Shohei, he's like Caitlin. We started with Caitlin Clark. I mean, he's got if there was no Shohei, I'm not sure it would have been as big a deal.
I didn't listen to one word after you just dropped some bomb.
Oh yeah.
You were a diehard Philly fan, and now you throw in I'm a quasi Dodger fan. What the fuck is that?
Dan Patrick show. We were on the same affiliate with the Dodgers station, so we had all these Dodgers people call in for years and years and years.
Fans, or you had Steve Garvey calling in?
No, we had fans. I met Steve Garvey. I hung out. The forearms are real and they're spectacular.
Let me throw something else out. Schrager, I'm going to guess Schrager pushes back on this.
Yeah,
the biggest flop and dud of anything in sports. The dynamic kickoff rule. Oh my God. What are we doing?
Yeah, I have nothing.
What pissed me off the most? Thank God, because I was getting ready to write a column. And I was going to kill all the announcers. After week 1, they stopped calling it the dynamic kickoff rule. Because if they continued, it was going to be a problem.
It's a 1-year thing. We'll see if they bring it back. But the goal of it was health and safety, not to titillize you. You know, I don't know. We haven't had as many concussions. Yeah. Is that what you want to hear?
Jimmy, do you hate?
No, I want to hear that there's nothing dynamic about it.
Jimmy, you hate the golden at bat?
Oh my God! Don't even waste my time with that.
Wait, what is the rule with baseball with the guy on second? Is that just the playoffs?
No, that's just the regular season in extra inning.
That was crazy to me. I saw
it's
that.
A terrible
this year.
rule.
That was nuts.
It's a terrible rule.
Peter, you know the golden bat that you can bat a guy out of order once a game. Yeah. I'm all for it. Let's go, Jimmy.
You mentioned Ohtani. I'd written down the Ohtani gambling story as one of the.
Forgot it already. Forgot.
Went away.
Dude,
how convenient.
Went away, bro. Went away. Just like that Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm finale. I forgot about it. Didn't make an impact. Sorry. It was great when it happened.
I don't want to get morbid. But there's two.
We're doing it in memoriam? Let's go.
Well, Chris Mortensen passed away. Chris Mortensen passed away this year. I guess Will McDonough was the original NFL insider, but in terms of a global level, because he did it on the pregame shows, but Mortensen, I think, took it to he was the first who took it to that level, right, Peter?
Yes. Well, Peter King and Chris Mortensen. Peter King in the written word, and then Mort, who went from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution to CNN, then of course ESPN, but Mort was the man, and Mort did it well after he suffered his first bout with cancer and was still on television doing it, and did it right up to his death. And you want to talk about a guy who heard and saw all, had a little bite to him too. But anytime I had a good scoop or a good coverage, you would hear from Mort. So he was one of those. Yeah, he's one of the
rare
legends.
Guy in sports media you never heard a bad word about.
The man. And then the status thing in Woj's article on that is that he went to the funeral and barely anyone was there from that he thought would be. And he was like, gosh, all the work that we do, no one remembers the scoops, and no one it's the stuff that the people you made the contact with, but the life is short, Yep.
Mort, I mean, he was so much bigger than me. He would send me, if he liked to tweet of mine, up until very close to the end.
I know. I was getting stuff like Combine. I guess he passed away during the Combine. I was getting stuff during maybe a week or two earlier. So he was with it till the end.
Yeah, he was super engaged until the very end. And what a nice man.
Yep. And Vern Lundquist He retired from college football a couple of years ago, but the Masters was the last thing for Vern Lundquist.
I thought I missed that news. I was about to have a break.
No. But Vern retired officially after the Masters, and that was the perfect voice for like a Sunday Masters. Like he had the tone.
Oh yeah,
it was perfect. And then personally for me, John Sterling retires.
Is he retired?
That hurts.
Yeah,
he retired. He came back, and now he's retired again. But he is retired this time because they hired Dave Sims,
who's awesome, by the way.
Yes, he is. I'm a big fan.
Dude.
No, he's good. He'll be good. So that's everything there for me in 2024.
Oh, you didn't do Nance going off Final Four? Didn't your guy?
Yeah, Nance leaving the Final Four. I like that though because Ian deserves a lead gig, and Ian working with Raftery is great. So,
all right,
that's a positive.
How long is your guy Al going to do it, Jimmy?
I was surprised that Al would be doing it next year, to be honest with you. I thought Al might have had enough. But, I mean, he's still good.
He's so funny.
But I don't know. At some point, don't you just want to stop doing it? That's what I don't get with these people.
Nah.
The games are hard. Like a radio gig is different. Like even like Howard. People say Howard should stop. Or like Chris Russo's still doing it. Dan Patrick,
like radio hosting, not radio play-by-play, because that's even more treacherous.
Right. Radio hosting. Like no one should ever leave that gig. But like when you're doing play-by-play, like the travel, hotels, I don't know. Like I would think when you're 80 years old, you've had enough of it. But maybe it's also a way where it keeps you young. Yeah.
He loves it. Al's the best.
No,
dude.
you got to keep.
And he's
working.
like, he's the best.
Oh yeah.
Everything about him. Salt and that piss and vinegar stuff that he has now. Like this version of him might be my favorite version of all.
A true character, without a doubt. Anyone else you want to mention or any stories you want to mention before we say goodbye here?
I think we did a great job. I think
we really did. I get a lot of praise every year for this podcast, and
I mean, we mentioned Mace, Cameron, Paige Brookers. We hit it all.
I feel like Jimmy giving Peter credit for the Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best take, sort of, kind of makes it biased for the listeners. Could be like, oh, Peter was so right about Ryan Fitzpatrick. What about all my takes, Jimmy?
The only take I know out of you is for years I've known you as a diehard Philly fan, and you say you're a quasi Dodger fan. Like that's the one I can't.
Who doesn't like the Dodgers? They have Mookie and Shohei. You're
a Phillies fan. What are you talking about?
But if you're a neutral fan, like you gotta like them too.
You're a disgrace.
Let me ask you guys real quick as we close. Good sports media year 2024, bad sports media year, and are you excited for 2025? Jimmy.
It's all awful, but it's like social
I woke
media
up to a Kirk Herbstreit Shannon Sharpe.
Oh yeah.
Like, where are we going?
Right, but you woke up to that because you checked Twitter.
I know.
The issue is Twitter.
And I sought it out and I watched everything and I read 6 articles on it. So who am I to,
If there was no Twitter, we would all be fine. That's the issue.
Interesting. It was a presidential election year and sports media pretty much stayed out of it.
No one got in trouble. Yeah, no one really got in trouble.
Yeah. Did you know
not like that when it was like Jamel Hill getting in trouble and then the other, like no one really got in big trouble this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next year. Peter, Good Morning Football. He's going to start off with his first take's going to be on the debt ceiling.
I'm going to talk about the debt ceiling in Ukraine. Let's go.
That's it. I think the streaming is the biggest story by far in sports media. NFL announcers, they're all status quo for a while. They all have contracts.
Oh, I don't know. I think Caitlin Clark, NIL are also big deals. The college sports could be chaos next year.
I can't pay attention to NIL. It just
there's a lot going on. 12-team playoff. They're going to get rid of that. I think college sports is going to make a lot of noise next year too.
When does the new WNBA season start?
Summer?
At the end of towards the end of the NBA season.
Oh, all right. Because I'd be curious to see.
Couple things you didn't mention.
Ratings in year 2.
We had an Olympics this year. Not one of us mentioned anything with Olympics
because I didn't watch 1 second of it. Go ahead.
Okay. And then I don't know. That's all.
I don't. Chiefs. Oh, one sports media story. Sorry. Every year, Peter, how many years in a row have you gotten the Super Bowl pick right? Not to jinx you at all.
Oh yeah, that's a good topic.
A lot in a row. I've got Packers Chiefs as we record this on Monday.
Right.
That's what I had in September.
Wow.
It's still very alive.
I did pick on my show on I think Tuesday or something, and then you came out the next day, and I was immediately like, "Oh man, I want to redo it." I did Packers Bengals.
Okay,
and then you're like. That's a thing, Peter. Congratulations. That's like we're taking it lightly, but it's so awesome. And I was bummed because I'm like, the Chiefs 3-peat last year on this pod, you're like, don't count out the Chiefs because they looked really bad.
I know. It was Christmas, and I said, "Don't. Who cares? Just the playoffs." I still believe in the Chiefs. It's not a crazy thing. They're 14-1 as we record this, but Chiefs, Packers, and I said it on Good Morning Football on September 3rd. I said, and the Packers do it as a wild card. So I do believe that's going to happen. Still.
Can you text me next year before you make your pick so I can make the same one?
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Like if the Packers.
I'll say this about that though, Jimmy. It's so hard, and Andrew, like I appreciate you saying it's so hard to have a thing in media. It took years and years of getting the matchup and the winner right that it finally became a thing this year, and I felt that. So I'd really like to get it right again. So I am fully a Packers fan for the next few weeks.
The NFC sort of opened up for them. Lions injuries, Eagles injuries.
Eagles, yeah.
Let's go.
What's the story with Jalen Hurts? I didn't even check today.
Concussion, but they'll check.
Okay, so he's fine.
All right. Yeah.
Why did he come back in the game?
He wanted
There's some
to.
conspiracy theories out there that the Eagles were playing games, but I have no idea.
You want to know the worst trend there? Conspiracy theory. Everything's a conspiracy.
You're right.
And it doesn't matter. Sports, like the fact that the conspiracy theories are now like invaded everything. No one believes anything. Everything's a conspiracy. Oh God.
Don't believe everything you're told, Jimmy.
I don't believe most of what I'm told.
Okay, so let your mind go there. I learned that from the Enigma documentary a conspiracy theory is a conspiracy theory until it's fact.
Coming from the king of conspiracy theories.
I love things that annoy Jimmy. I mean, there's a long list.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Long Island Railroad.
I don't take it anymore, so I don't care about what happens there.
And the dynamic kickoff. Now I'm just going to randomly text you on a Tuesday. How did you like that dynamic kickoff, Jimmy?
It was irate in week one. Every announcer calling it the dynamic kickoff, and every kickoff was a touchback. What are we doing?
Funny. All right, let's wrap it up.
I ranted about the rule. I ranted about the rules analyst in my column today. That's the next thing I want.
Oh my God!
Sanchez with a little boo boo, getting the wrong guy. It said,
okay. So, but everyone said that he said that because Steratore once used an index card.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. Yeah.
If the rules analysts don't start calling out bad calls, I'm going to jump into my TV.
It's never going to happen.
Driving me crazy.
All right. You want to give a prediction for 2025 or should we wrap it up? It's up to you.
Big year for all of us personally, professionally. Yes. We're going to have our best years yet. And this is going to be the greatest podcast ever in December of 2025.
Oh, well said.
Let's end it there. All right.
Yeah. Peter's gotten 5 straight Super Bowls, 6 straight Super Bowls. He's got that right too.
Let's go.
So that coincides with this podcast because this is the 5th annual Perloff Schrager Traina extravaganza. So it coincides. All right. We appreciate everybody. Listen, I appreciate Andrew and Schrager tremendously. Happy New Year. Stay safe out there. Happy holidays. And we'll see you next year, the 3 of us together.
Love it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. All right, my many, many thanks to Peter Schrager, Andrew Perloff, and you guys for listening. I appreciate it greatly. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. And you could also leave a review on Apple. If you missed any recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, go into the archives, give them a listen. We had NBC's Mike Tirico on the show last week, Sean McDonough from ESPN on the show 2 weeks ago, Brian Curtis from The Ringer 3 weeks ago, Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football 4 weeks ago. So give those a listen if you did not. Subscribe. And leave a review on Apple. Sal Licata and Train of Thoughts will be back next week. We'll have a fresh episode for you in our usual slot. And hope you enjoyed this one. Appreciate you guys listening. Would love to hear some feedback on it. And that's it. Enjoy your holiday. Stay safe. Take care. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.